I don't care if you're on your lunch. Fix it now, Jason barked, slapping a printout on Karen's desk like he was laying down the 10 Commandments. It was the third time this month he'd summoned her mid-bite to clean up a payroll mess from his golden boy, Bryce, a junior hire whose main talent seemed to be screwing up timesheets and quoting Joe Rogan unironically. The spreadsheet was a disaster, again. 8 hours logged on a day Bryce was out sick. Karen stared at the numbers and muttered under her breath. Did he work it telepathically, or was this just another miracle of executive favoritism? Jason didn't wait for a reply. He never did. He strutted off like he'd just delivered a keynote at Tech's Control Freak, leaving the scent of Axe body spray and entitlement in his wake. Karen sighed, closed her half-eaten yogurt, and got to work again. No thank you, no context. Just that simmering, spoken expectation. Karen will handle it. She always did, quietly, precisely. The way that old boiler in her grandma's house hissed before it finally exploded. And just for the record, this wasn't in her job description. Karen was a senior analyst, not an unpaid nanny for Jason's pack of professional toddlers. She'd been at the company for 9 years, longer than the standing desks, the kombucha fridge, and the so-called chief visionary officer. She trained new hires, smoothed client meltdowns, and patched back-end reporting tools no one else understood. But ever since Jason took over the department last year, it was like she'd become a ghost with a keyboard, visible only when something went wrong. The first time Jason barked at her in front of everyone during a Monday stand-up, Karen blinked twice and said nothing. The third time, took a screenshot of his Slack rant and forwarded it to a private folder she kept labeled just in case. By month 6, she was a curator of chaos, cataloging every backdated timesheet, every time card he edited after hours, every passive-aggressive per my last email buried in corporate doublespeak. And here's the kicker. He didn't even hide it. Jason had this warped philosophy he called motivational discipline. It's how he justified yelling at staff during meetings, forcing unpaid overtime, and humiliating underperformers with what he charmingly referred to as character-building moments. HR didn't bat an eye. They called it agile leadership. Karen called it weaponized mediocrity. Now here's where it gets interesting. Last Friday, Karen was staying late to finish month-end reconciliation because surprise, surprise, Bryce forgot to log a whole week of work. Someone had to clean it up. While double-checking time entries in the shared admin platform, she saw Jason's username pop up. He was editing time cards at 9:48 p.m. for entries dated 2 weeks back. Karen didn't say a word. She just opened OBS and started recording her screen. She may have been exhausted, but she wasn't stupid. By the way, if you're still listening and even mildly entertained by this circus of corporate dysfunction, press a solid and tap that subscribe button. It's free, unlike Jason's ego, and really helps the team keep digging up these stories. And hey, if you like watching toxic managers fumble into legal disasters, hit that like button too. We've got plenty more. Back to our regularly scheduled meltdown. The next morning, Karen walked in early, her armor of caffeine and passive-aggressive patience fully loaded. Bryce was already there, fumbling with the copier like it owed him money. He gave her a sheepish hey, then scurried off, probably to forget another password. Karen booted up her laptop, opened the error-ridden payroll spreadsheet, and began quietly fixing what should have been flagged in the first place. She barely heard the morning stand-up begin behind her until Jason said her name with that false cheer voice he used when he was about to throw someone under the bus. Let's all give Karen a round of applause. He smirked, clapping like a toddler who just saw fireworks. She saved us again from another little Bryce blunder. Real team player. The room gave an awkward chuckle, which is why, he continued, I think it's time Karen took a little break. A week off. Unpaid, of course. You know, mental refresh. Reset that attitude. Karen blinked. Jason grinned like he'd just solved world peace. She glanced around the room. Slack-jawed silence. Even Bryce looked like he wanted to disappear into the printer. Karen didn't say a word, but her hand, under the desk, tapped record on her phone. Voice memo captured. Timestamp logged. Game quietly, irrevocably on. Jason's voice echoed off the break room's beige drywall like he thought he was delivering a TED talk instead of a professional slap in the face. Let's all take a moment to celebrate Karen's dedication. He beamed, standing there in his Patagonia vest and weaponized smugness. She's been working so hard lately, maybe a little too hard. So, in my infinite compassion, I've decided she'll be taking a week of unpaid leave to cool off, effective immediately. Silence. You could hear someone's spoon clink against their mug. A half-eaten muffin hung midair in accounting's hand. Karen just sat there, eyes unreadable, as Jason folded his arms and gave her that look, like he expected her to thank him for the favor. Of course, he added, this is optional if she wants to forfeit her position entirely. That's when Karen realized it. He thought this was punishment, correction, an alpha move. He didn't see it as a confession of guilt or an HR disaster waiting to be notarized. He thought he was disciplining a rogue file cabinet. Karen didn't blink, didn't twitch, just nodded once and quietly stood up, gathering her laptop like she was heading to a routine meeting. Everything okay? Whispered Ava from billing. Karen smiled, a quiet, eerie little smile that said you have no idea how okay this is about to be, and walked out. Straight past the vending machines, past Jason still monologuing about proactive emotional recalibration, and into her cubicle, where she sat down and opened the voice memo app on her phone. Playback, Karen's taking a week of unpaid leave, or she can find another job crystal clear. No background noise. His voice sounded like the opening line of a deposition. She copied the file to her cloud folder labeled Compliance Portfolio, and then, without drama or delay, opened Outlook. New message. Recipients. Payroll, HR, legal alias. The subject line. Requesting confirmation of employment status change. Body of the email. Per Jason's directive today, I've been instructed to take 1 week of unpaid leave or face termination. Voice recording attached. Please confirm the legality and policy compliance of this action. Karen, she hit send. Then she logged out of the company Slack and went to lunch. By the time she got back, there were 3 replies. Payroll, we are unable to enforce any unpaid leave without documented HR approval. Legal autoresponder. Your message has been received. If this is time-sensitive, contact redacted. HR, nothing. Radio silence, which told her everything she needed to know. They were scrambling, probably calling Jason into a side room right now to ask what the hell he thought he was doing. Jason didn't show up for the afternoon team call. At 3:17 p.m., Karen watched him pace by her cubicle twice, like a hyena smelling something smarter than him. He didn't speak, but his jaw was tight and his clipboard was clenched like he was trying to manifest a legal degree through osmosis. At 4:06 p.m., she got a Slack ping from Bryce. Just an emoji, eyes, followed by yo WTF was that this morning? Karen didn't respond. She spent the next hour reviewing old emails, hunting, assembling. Pulled up the Excel logs from last March, where Jason manually adjusted 4 entries to reflect voluntary overtime, after she and another analyst had specifically noted they'd been assigned mandatory client cleanup duty on a Friday night. She flagged 2 more instances where her PTO requests had been denied, yet her vacation hours still mysteriously deducted. It was all there. It had always been there. But now, someone had hit record. And Jason had just escalated a mild insubordination into a full-blown legal liability. At 5:13 p.m., she got another email. This one from someone she hadn't heard from in 2 years, Renee, former analyst, now working at a rival firm. Subject line, still got that screenshot from 2022, Karen grinned. Oh, she had it, timestamped, archived, and ready. She clicked reply. Yes, why? Renee's reply was almost immediate. Just filed a preliminary complaint myself. If you're building a case, I'll forward mine too. He did the same crap to me. Let's compare notes. Karen leaned back in her chair. A week of unpaid leave. Sure, Jason, that was cute. She wasn't going anywhere. But his job sure as hell was. Jason hit her cubicle like a rogue shopping cart in a Walmart parking lot, fast, loud, and full of bent-up rage wrapped in business casual. You serious right now? He hissed, leaning in close enough that Karen could smell his panic through the cologne he applied like it owed him child support. You sent the memo to Payroll. With a recording, what the hell were you thinking? Karen didn't flinch. Her eyes flicked up to his face, red, twitching at the corners, that fake charming manager mask slipping like a toupee in a wind tunnel, and then back down to her keyboard. I was thinking, she said flatly, that asking for policy confirmation is better than being fired over a team meeting ambush. Jason laughed, one of those short, humorless barks that sounds more like a dog warning a stranger off its porch. You're walking a very fine line, Karen. This isn't how we handle things here. You're making yourself look bad. Not me. People talk. Word gets around. Maybe you're not the team player you think you are. Karen, without a word, reached into her bag and casually tapped her phone, already open to voice memos. Red light on, recording live. He didn't notice. Jason kept going, voice low and venomous. You want to act like a lawyer? Fine. But if you think anyone's going to back you over me, you're delusional. I've got people upstairs who listen when I talk. You've got a spreadsheet and a martyr complex. Grow up. She stared at her monitor, expression unreadable, as he huffed and walked off, straight into his office where he slammed the door hard enough to rattle her stapler. Karen slowly reached over, ended the recording, and saved it with a label she never thought she'd type. Jason threats cubicle 3 p.m. Then she sat back, let her blood cool, and opened a new tab, incognito mode, because this wasn't company business anymore. This was war, and wars don't get waged on company Wi-Fi. Typed in Ohio Department of Labor wage complaint and clicked the first official result. Intake form. Step-by-step instructions. Clear and professional. Karen's fingers hovered over the keyboard for a beat before she began typing. Nature of complaint. Supervisor issued mandatory, unpaid leave without documented cause or HR involvement. Retaliatory in nature, following multiple instances where I corrected financial discrepancies in payroll. She paused and looked around the office. To her left, Bryce slouched in his seat, earbuds in, completely oblivious to the storm brewing 3 feet away. To her right, Susan from marketing, trying not to look like she was eavesdropping even though her mouse hadn't moved in 2 minutes. And across the room, Jason's office light flickering, shadows pacing behind the blinds. Karen returned to the form. Additional details. Voice memo attached. Supervisor acknowledged in public setting the punitive nature of the unpaid leave. Threatened termination when asked for policy clarification. By the time she reached the bottom of the form, her jaw ached from how tightly she'd been clenching it. But she didn't stop. Not when she attached the memo. Not when she pasted links to time-stamped emails, screenshots, and copies of her denied PTO requests that still somehow cost her vacation hours. Not even when she typed the final line under other relevant info. Multiple other employees may be affected by similar violations. I am in contact with one. Will provide further documentation if requested. She didn't hit send just yet. Instead, she saved a draft and encrypted it with a tool she downloaded after watching a documentary on whistleblowers and Silicon Valley lawsuits. Karen wasn't just documenting anymore. She was preparing for impact. At 5:02 p.m., HR finally responded. Subject, confirmation of employment status change. Hi Karen, we'd like to schedule a conversation to discuss recent developments. Are you available tomorrow morning at 10? She stared at the email. Read it again. Then typed, please provide agenda and clarification if this meeting is investigatory in nature or disciplinary. Also request HR rep present. Send. Let them scramble for once. Jason didn't leave the office until 7. He stalked out with his laptop tucked under his arm like a hostage, avoiding eye contact, his jaw clenched tight enough to crack walnuts. Karen watched him go from behind her screen. She didn't move, didn't speak. She just opened a new spreadsheet. Not for work, for tracking. Jason had opened a door today he couldn't close, not with apologies, not with gaslighting, and definitely not with some faux team-building bullshit. Karen wasn't playing defense anymore. She was building the case. Karen stayed late that night, not because anyone asked her to, but because she needed silence. The office emptied slowly, like a drain struggling to clear after years of soap scum and bad decisions. One by one, the screens dimmed. The chat pings stopped. The fluorescent buzz of forced productivity quieted into something colder. At 7:41 p.m., Karen opened a new folder on her personal drive. She named it Jason Compliance Trail. It started with the obvious. Screenshots from Slack, those passive-aggressive gems Jason loved dropping at 9:59 p.m., 1 minute before clockout. Need this cleaned up before morning, Karen's got it. No please, no thanks. Just assignment by decree, like she was his own personal Roomba. She dug deeper. Saved email thread from July. Jason CCing HR after she dared to ask about a PTO adjustment that never posted. His subject line read concerning tone/pattern of behavior. The kind of vague, corporate hex designed to poison a file without ever saying anything real. She'd saved it. Of course she had. Along with her original, Amazabomb email asking simply, Could you clarify why my vacation hours were deducted after my PTO was denied? Next folder, timesheets. She pulled up the December archive and found it, an old PDF she'd been asked to sign off on just for compliance. It was redacted. 2 shifts blacked out. Jason claimed it was a confidentiality issue with client billing. At the time, she'd let it slide. Now she opened the original Excel log from that same week because she'd never trusted the PDFs and saw her actual hours. 52 logged, 40 paid. The redacted section was her overtime. Karen screenshot it, highlighted, filed. At 8:19 p.m., she opened LinkedIn in another tab, heart already racing. She typed in the names she hadn't let herself think about for a while. Angela M., former compliance associate. Left suddenly last spring, no notice, no LinkedIn announcement. Found her under a different company 2 cities away. Connor J., junior analyst, quiet, detail-obsessed. Jason publicly chewed him out during a client call for overstepping. Gone within 2 weeks. She messaged them both. To Angela, hi, I know this is out of the blue. Hope you're well. Quick question, did you leave voluntarily last March or were you encouraged to exit? I'm asking for reasons I can explain if you're open. To Connor, hey, strange request. Did Jason ever alter your time cards or pressure you about hours back when you were on our team? Angela replied in less than 15 minutes. Can confirm I was pushed. HR called it a soft pivot opportunity. Jason made it clear I was creating friction. Happy to provide written statement if needed. Karen stared at the screen, her throat tightening. Connor responded shortly after. Yes. He said, if I couldn't handle real deadlines, maybe I should consider a less demanding field. I worked 3 weekends without pay. Still have some of the Slack messages. LMK. Her fingers hovered over the keys, then dropped into her lap. For a second, just a second, she broke. Not with rage, with exhaustion. Her shoulders slumped. Her eyes stung. She stood, grabbed her keys, and walked out. No dramatic storming. No slammed doors. Just Karen in her 15-year-old Corolla, parked in the back corner of the lot, gripping the wheel like it might anchor her. She cried. Not like the movies. No sobbing. No mascara rivers. Just that low pressure valve release that creeps up behind your ribs and squeezes until you can't see straight. She thought about the hours she'd sacrificed. The birthdays she worked through. The vacation days she'd rolled over again and again like they were luxury she couldn't afford. She thought about Jason, lording his clipboard over her like it was sacred scripture, how easily he'd tried to erase her with a voice memo. After a few minutes, she exhaled. Long, slow, final. Then she wiped her face, started the engine, and drove straight home. Inside, she made tea. Not out of self-care, she didn't believe in that buzzword crap, but out of muscle memory. And as it steeped, she opened her laptop one last time that night. The draft complaint was waiting for her. She added the new evidence. Screenshots, names, emails, Angela and Connor's replies, redacted only for personal privacy. The timeline stretched back over a year now. She formatted it neatly, professionally, like any good analyst would. Then she addressed a new email. 2. Labor complaints at Statoa CC. Legal at Companydemaincom subject. Formal wage and retaliation, complaint supporting documents, attached body. Attached is my formal complaint concerning multiple labor violations, including unpaid overtime, coercive time card alterations, and retaliatory actions by my supervisor. Additional evidence and corroboration included. Further documentation available upon request. Karen, she hovered for one breath, then clicked send. The war wasn't coming, it had begun. On Monday morning, the energy in the office felt off, not just the usual post-weekend dread or microwave fish lunch tension. No, this was something slicker, stickier, like a smear of Vaseline on a camera lens. People were whispering near printers. Slack channels that used to buzz had gone dead quiet. Karen noticed it the moment she stepped off the elevator. Then came the text. Unknown number, local area code. Hi Karen, this is Officer Tinsley with redacted PD. We received a wellness request from your employer and would like to check in. Are you at work today? She blinked. There it was. The oldest, dirtiest trick in the handbook of failing managers, weaponizing concern. If you can't bury someone with policy, try pity. Frame them as unstable, dangerous. Erode their credibility under the warm, fuzzy blanket of we're just trying to help. Karen didn't respond immediately. She walked into the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the closed toilet lid, and took a breath so deep it cracked something in her spine. She knew this was coming. She had prepared. 3 weeks ago, Jason first started escalating from petty to predatory. She began laying her trap. not just gathering time cards and Slack screenshots, but tracking her own wellness with receipts. She pulled out her phone and opened her encrypted notes app. Entry dated 2 weeks ago. Email to PCP requesting confirmation of routine mental health check-in. Next entry. Reply from doctor confirming visit and stating no risk of self-harm or harm to others. Patient stable and responsive. Next. Request to Jason for flexible time to attend wellness appointment denied. Email marked as read. Timestamp matched exactly 2 hours after she sent it. Karen took a screenshot of the thread, then another of the email metadata showing Jason's read receipt. Then she called Officer Tinsley. Hi, this is Karen. Yes, I'm at work. Yes, I'm safe. No, I'm not a danger to anyone, unless you count bad management practices. You tell me who made the report. A pause. We can't disclose that, ma'am. It was a third-party concern relayed through your employer. Was it specific? What exactly was the nature of the concern? More fumbling. Something about erratic behavior, possible breakdown, maybe self-harm. Karen's laugh was quiet, sharp, like the click of a revolver cylinder. Officer, I'm fine. In fact, I've already provided documentation to my employer outlining my mental health status, cleared by a licensed professional. What you've been pulled into is not a wellness check. It's retaliation disguised as empathy. She heard the awkward throat clear on the other end. Well, okay then. Thanks for your time. She hung up, then forwarded the call log to her personal email. She wasn't letting any of this evaporate into the ether. At 11:34 a.m., an HR calendar invite slid into her inbox. Subject, Karen check-in team dynamics and support resources. Attendees, HR manager Karen. Optional, Jason. Time, 3:00 p.m. today. Location, Conf RMB. Karen declined. Then she replied in writing, "Thank you for the invitation. Given that this request follows a wellness check initiated without my consent, and considering that I have already provided medical clearance as per company documentation standards, I am not comfortable participating without legal representation present. Please forward any concerns to my attorney, CC'd here." She added her legal contact to the thread. It wasn't a bluff. Back when the unpaid leave fiasco first blew up, she'd called a labor law hotline. Spoke to a woman named Denise who had spent 15 years suing people like Jason into oblivion. Denise told her what to document, how to write the complaint, and what breadcrumbs to lay. Karen had CC'd her that morning. The HR response came 20 minutes later. Understood. We'll hold off pending further discussion. Please take whatever time you need. HR is here to support you. Translation, we saw the cliff. We're backing up slowly. Jason didn't come out of his office all day. At 4:17 p.m., she passed him in the hallway. His eyes were wild behind his Warby Parkers. He opened his mouth like he might say something fake-friendly, probably, but Karen didn't stop. Just walked past him with the full weight of her quiet fury wrapped in professionalism. She didn't break stride, didn't glance back. She knew what he'd tried to do, and more importantly, she knew it didn't work. He tried to bury her with rumors and corporate pity, but she brought receipts. And now the only person looking unstable was him. By Wednesday, the silence around Karen had changed. Wasn't the awkward kind anymore, the kind that followed her after Jason's fake smile team meetings or when HR ghosted her PTO requests. No, this was the quiet of shifting tectonic plates, a pressure building behind closed doors, eyes that darted but didn't linger, Slack statuses mysteriously set to away even though she could hear typing on keyboards 2 rows over. And then came the signs. Sticky note left on her desk in Ava's unmistakable cursive. Check your inbox. Subject, March schedule adjustment. Look closely at the approvals. Karen opened it and found a forwarded thread between Jason and HR where he backdated an overtime change, telling HR she'd volunteered to stay late to train a new hire who didn't even start until April. She added it to her folder. Labeled at time fraud backdating email March 2023. And during lunch, she felt a nudge on her shoulder. It was Daniel, junior analyst, nervous as a rabbit but sharp as hell. He slid something into her jacket pocket without a word. Later, in the bathroom stall, she unwrapped the post-it stuck to the object. Trust issues. Found this in the shared folder cache before it got deleted. Password, by Felicia. It was a USB drive. Back at her desk, Karen plugged it into her personal laptop. Never company issued. Denise the lawyer warned her about metadata traps, opened the files, and nearly dropped her mug. It was a Slack export. Full team archive, direct messages, private channels, meeting recaps, nothing scrubbed. She clicked into one labeled Hash Manager Notes Private. Line 1, Jason, we need her gone. Start writing her up, make it stick. I don't care what it is, lateness, tone, anything. Just start. Line 2, other manager, you sure? That could blow back. Line 3, Jason, not if she cracks first. She's too passive, we just gotta push the right buttons. Karen stared at the screen for a long time. Then she opened the folder titled Friday Strategy. Screenshots from a planning doc. One item read, risk flag, Karen D may escalate. Monitor tone in emails. Loop HR preemptively. She didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Instead, she highlighted the files and copied them into her compliance drive. The folder targeting tactics. By 4 p.m., she'd received 3 more anonymous forwards. One from a former IT tech, evidence that Jason had attempted to request admin access to her Outlook calendar without her knowledge. One from a data analyst, screenshots of Jason trashing her during a morale check call with a client, claiming she was uncoachable and emotionally erratic. And the last, a bombshell, from a senior admin who'd been sitting on it for months. Formal HR complaint that had mysteriously never been filed. The PDF was marked as draft only with red-line comments from Jason like, "Strike this, makes it sound too retaliatory." Karen compiled every file, every screenshot, every whisper and weapon disguised as a workflow. The folder now spanned 4 subdirectories, time-stamped, with a spreadsheet index that read like an indictment. She double-checked every metadata tag, every sender address, every image name. Then she opened her email. 2. Labor complaints at Stay Toas, CC. Legal at Companitiming.com, subject. Supplemental evidence case, hash 47321B, body. Per the Labor Board's request for further documentation, please find attached a comprehensive dossier of internal communications, including evidence of targeting, retaliation, coordination of a fraudulent disciplinary campaign against myself. This escalation reflects ongoing behavior and deliberate misconduct beyond the original wage complaint. Karen attachments, 44 files, 2.8 GB zipped. One hell of a grenade. She clicked send. The email disappeared into the server queue, and Karen sat back for a moment, the hum of the fluorescent lights dull against the pulse in her neck. Her hands weren't shaking. They were steady, because this wasn't vengeance anymore. This was control, data, leverage. Jason had tried to chip away at her dignity with write-ups and whispers. He tried to paint her as unstable, emotional, dramatic, and now he was just a profile in her report, a case study in how not to manage power. Karen closed her laptop, took one last sip of coffee, and smiled, grim, hollow, quiet, because it was all on record now, and the clock was ticking. Thursday morning arrived with the stillness of a courtroom just before the verdict. Karen showed up 20 minutes earlier than usual, her coffee in one hand, her personal laptop bag in the other. She moved with the calm certainty of someone who knew how the day would unfold, not hoped, not guessed, knew. Her heels clicked softly on the laminate as she made her way to her cubicle. No greetings, no glances, just the eerie hush of anticipation, as if the entire floor had stopped mid-breath. Even the elevator ding seemed quieter than usual, like it didn't want to interrupt what was coming. Jason's office was dark. His chair spun slightly off-center, the little plastic mat beneath it cracked from his constant pacing. But 3 doors down, the glass-walled executive conference room was lit. The CFO was already inside, and he wasn't alone. Karen spotted them through the pane: legal counsel, a labor compliance advisor, and someone from HR who looked like she'd been awake since 3 a.m. Her face was the color of skim milk. Karen didn't need to ask why they were here. She simply turned on her monitor, logged into her system, and opened a fresh Excel sheet, blank. Just columns and rows, waiting. The sound of corporate life. She didn't need to work. She just wanted to be there when the show began. At exactly 9:58 a.m., Jason strolled in. Late, no tie today. Just an open collar, full relaxed swagger, and the sour smell of a man who had spent all night pretending he wasn't terrified. He saw Karen, paused, smiled, too wide, too forced. She didn't smile back. Before he could reach his office, the CFO's voice cut through the open plan, quiet like a drill sergeant's whistle. Jason, conference room. Now. Jason froze mid-step. Floor fell silent. Even the intern stopped chewing her gum. Jason turned slowly. Is this about? Now, the CFO repeated. He was already standing at the head of the glass room, manila folder in hand. Jason walked in. The door shut behind him. Karen didn't watch at first. She simply sipped her coffee and waited. But within 30 seconds, the first raised voice made her glance up. Through the glass, she saw the CFO slam the folder down, pages scattered slightly across the table. One of them, the memo from the stand-up meeting, faced upward. Karen recognized the bolded line. Karen will be taking unpaid leave effective immediately. The CFO's finger jabbed at it like a dagger. Explain this, he barked, loud enough to echo down the hallway. This memo, this recording, this disciplinary action. Jason's mouth moved, but nothing audible reached the rest of the floor. Then the CFO raised his voice again, louder this time. You just turned a performance issue into a $400,000 wage theft lawsuit. That's minimum exposure, Jason. Minimum. Do you even comprehend the level of liability you've created? People were no longer pretending not to listen. Ava had stopped typing altogether. Daniel's hand hovered over his mouse like it was suspended in time. Even the VP from finance had wandered over from the other wing under the guise of getting coffee, now sipping it real slow, eyes locked on the conference room. Karen didn't look smug. She didn't need to, she just watched. Inside the room, Jason fumbled with a response. His hands waved as he tried to explain, to twist the narrative, to do what he always did, spin the truth like a PR intern in crisis mode. But the CFO wasn't having it. This is retaliation. Documented. Corroborated. Do you understand how dumb this is, Jason? Looking at class action territory. Back pay, penalties, damages. You gave her a week of unpaid leave without HR sign-off and then tried to cover it up with wellness concerns. That's not management. That's malpractice. Jason's face was drained of color. His forehead glistened. Karen watched the CFO pick up the manila folder again and wave it like a gavel. You've just cost this company more than your entire department's annual budget. I hope your ego was worth it. Words rippled through the glass, through the air, through the floor itself. And just like that, the room broke. HR stood up. Legal closed their laptop. The CFO didn't wait for Jason to speak again. He just walked out, stone-faced, straight past the stunned cubicles and toward the executive wing. Jason stayed seated, alone. He looked like a man who had just realized the gun he'd been waving was pointed at his own foot the entire time. Karen didn't speak, move. She just stared at her screen, the reflection of the glass room shimmering faintly in the corner of her monitor. And for the first time in a long time, she felt something settle inside her. Not victory, not revenge, just gravity. A weight falling exactly where it belonged. By Friday, the cleanup had begun, not the kind with Lysol wipes and conference room bagels, but the corporate kind. Everyone pretends they didn't smell the rot until it leaked onto their inboxes. At 9:03 a.m., a company-wide memo hit everyone's email. Subject: Immediate policy adjustment performance management protocols. The body was full of HR lingo, all caps where it mattered. All performance interventions must now be documented in partnership with HR prior to any discussion with employees. No exceptions. No improvisation. No more Jason-style motivational recalibration. The message was signed by the VP of HR herself. That same hour, Jason's office was cleared out by 2 people from security, and one poor soul from facilities who clearly didn't sign up to carry a succulent and a mini Zen garden across the floor. His whiteboard still had half-scribbled notes about Q4 ownership culture. Half-full bottle of Trader Joe's green juice sat abandoned on his desk like a relic from a dumber time. He wasn't there. Word traveled fast. Removed pending investigation. Not fired, not yet, but everyone knew. Jason had been told in no uncertain terms to pack his things and not speak to anyone on the way out. And if he did, the labor board would likely be CC'd on his grocery list. Karen kept her head down, not in shame, but in precision. There was still work to do. Ava swung by her cubicle mid-morning and just nodded. Nothing more. Just the kind of nod that says, you did it, we saw. We're not pretending anymore. Later that afternoon, HR reached out. Different tone this time. Smoother, more tentative. Hi, Karen, we'd like to discuss your future here. You've demonstrated incredible leadership and resilience through a challenging situation. Would you be open to a new role? Something with more visibility and, of course, a compensation review? Karen read the email twice. She knew what it was. A bribe, not malicious, not even desperate, just strategic. A little PR patch over a PR wound. Move her up, give her a title, put her on a flyer about employee empowerment, and hope the headlines stay internal. She declined. No fanfare. Just a reply, "I appreciate the offer." At this time, I'm focused on ensuring compliance processes are aligned with external accountability measures. I'll be staying in my current role until the audit concludes. And then she attached the final piece. A single file, encrypted, time-stamped. Label, for legal on the USB stick were three things. A final Slack thread from Jason's private channel where he asked another manager if they could bury the doc trail before any lawyers start poking around. Audio file from his office 2 weeks ago where he muttered, post-meeting, "I don't care if she sues, she's replaceable." And a neatly compiled spreadsheet index of every documented violation Karen had gathered over the past 11 months. It had categories, dates, witnesses, even a suggested timeline for policy rollout based on industry best practices. She hand-delivered the USB to legal, dropping it off in a labeled envelope without a word. Just a nod. Then she went back to her desk, took off her blazer, and got back to work, not out of obligation, out of control. Jason had played office politics like it was a contact sport. Karen built a file, he had tantrums, she had timestamps. He left damage, she left evidence. By close of day, another memo rolled out. An external auditor would be brought in to assess the company's compliance posture. Anonymous survey links were sent to all employees, providing feedback regarding managerial oversight. The office buzzed like a disturbed hive, but nobody looked at Karen the same way anymore. Not with pity, not with disbelief. Now it was something different. Respect, maybe, or fear. She didn't need either. She just needed the system to remember. Because people like Jason don't survive sunlight. And Karen had become the sun. Monday morning, the email hit every inbox before the first K-cup had finished brewing. Subject, Personnel Update Department of Strategy and Operations. It was written in the usual antiseptic HR dialect, where termination becomes transition, and massive screw-up gets translated into realignment of responsibilities. But the phrase that echoed across departments, across Slack threads, and across every passive-aggressive group chat was right there in the third line. Termination due to gross misconduct following a formal investigation. No severance, no face-saving exit interview. Just gone, Jason, the man who once swaggered into Monday meetings like he was auditioning for a Netflix reboot of The Office, now reduced to a past tense bullet point in a mass email. There was no all hands, no town hall, just the buzz of printers spitting out new compliance forms and the uncomfortable shuffle of managers realizing they'd better read them this time. By 10:17 a.m., a second email arrived, this one from legal. Subject, Notice of Remediation Measures Body. In light of recent findings, the organization is working with external counsel to assess appropriate settlements and compensation adjustments for any current or former employees adversely impacted by recent management practices. Further details will follow. Translation, we're paying people off because Karen made it impossible not to. She didn't gloat, didn't smirk. She just stood, stretched her spine, opened her drawer. Out came the manila folders, the highlighters, the spreadsheets she no longer needed. Every receipt already handed off, every file already backed up. She stacked them neatly, methodically, like she was filing the end of a chapter. As she packed the last of it into a banker's box, someone knocked gently on her cubicle. It was the CFO. No security, no entourage. Just a quiet man with tired eyes and a folder under his arm. He didn't step in, shake her hand. He just nodded. Got your memo. All of it, he said. I don't know what this place would look like today if you hadn't said something. Karen blinked. That was the first time anyone had said it aloud, not hinted, not implied. Just said it. He held out the folder. Inside, a formal acknowledgement from legal, a signed document confirming her contributions during the compliance review, a waiver of liability should she choose to stay or go, and, tucked into the back, a personal letter from legal counsel. She didn't open it, not yet. Instead, she nodded back. No offense, she said, but I didn't do it for the company. The CFO smiled faintly. I figured. And with that, he left. Karen turned back to her desk. The box was almost full except for her nameplate. She left that behind because she wasn't leaving. Not really. What she was building next didn't need cubicles or nameplates. It needed leverage, reputation, proof that the quiet ones weren't weak. They were just waiting. She had the name of her consultancy already picked out. Bought the domain last week. Drafted the mission statement the night after Jason's voice cracked behind that glass wall. Her first clients, HR reps from 3 different companies who'd quietly messaged her through LinkedIn, all asking the same question. Would you consider training our compliance team? She hadn't answered yet. She would. She was ready. Karen took one last look around the office, the place that underestimated her for 9 years, then finally, irreversibly, learned. She picked up her box, walked out without looking back. No applause, no dramatic music, just the gentle click of the elevator doors and the knowledge that her silence had never been compliance. It had been strategy. And when the final report was filed, when the audit closed and the settlement checks went out, when Jason's name became a whispered cautionary tale between cubicles, she wrote one final line in her private journal, the one she'd kept hidden in her bottom drawer for years. He thought I was afraid to lose my job. I was documenting how he lost his. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.